The desert sky was burning gold when the first warship appeared over the horizon. Villagers stopped what they were doing and stared, unsure if this was a sign of help or doom. The air felt heavy, as if the heat itself carried danger. Jonas, a human engineer stationed on the outer colony, wiped the sweat from his brow and watched the shadow grow larger. Something deep inside told him that this was the beginning of trouble. Within minutes, the sound of engines roared across the sands. The alien fleet descended with precision, their banners fluttering against the wind. Soldiers marched forward in armor that glinted under the sun. At the center of their formation sat a throne carried by 4 guards. On it rested a woman unlike anything Jonas had seen before. Her skin was bright green, her hair silver white, and her eyes burned with a strange golden light. Jonas knew from the briefings that she was Princess Virela of the Zarath Dominion. The Dominion was feared for its speed in war and its ability to conquer without mercy. But her presence here was unusual. Royals did not personally step onto battlefronts unless the situation was too important to trust anyone else. Her armor looked ceremonial yet strong, decorated with gold and crimson patterns. She sat tall, scanning the area with the calm of someone who knew her power. The human outpost commander stepped forward to greet her, but his voice trembled. Jonas stayed back, observing every detail. The princess's lips curved slightly when her eyes locked onto him. It was not the kind of look a warrior gave an enemy. It was as if she recognized something in him, though they had never met before. That small gesture made his chest tighten, even though the sand between them still felt like a battlefield. The tension broke when one of the alien soldiers stumbled forward with a damaged arm brace. Jonas watched as the princess reached for her own shoulder armor and pressed against it. A faint clink echoed, and Jonas realized the clasp was loose. Before he understood why, the commander called him forward. "You," he ordered, "fix her armor." Jonas hesitated. He was just an engineer, not a soldier trained to stand before royalty. But refusing was not an option. Jonas stepped closer, his boots sinking into the warm sand. The scent of her perfume was nothing like the desert. It was floral, deep, and strangely human. His hands moved to adjust the golden clasp at her shoulder. The metal was warmer than he expected, pulsing faintly with energy from its power core. His fingers brushed against the soft material beneath the plates. Suddenly, the princess let out a small giggle, her voice breaking the wall of silence around them. "That tickles. Human," she whispered, leaning in slightly so only he could hear. Her tone was playful, but there was an undertone that made Jonas's heart pound harder. "Do it slowly," she added, her lips curling into a mischievous smile. He felt the eyes of her guards on him, yet they didn't move to stop him. In that moment, he realized this was not a simple repair. She was testing him, though for what he could not guess. Jonas tightened the clasp with care, his mind racing with questions. Why had she spoken to him this way? Was it a distraction, a power play, or something more dangerous? The warship engine still hummed above, and soldiers remained alert, but the princess's focus stayed on him. Whatever game she was playing, he had just been pulled into it, and the desert heat suddenly felt much colder against his skin. Jonas stepped back slowly after fastening the clasp, but his mind kept replaying her voice. The princess had spoken like they were alone, even though soldiers surrounded them. Her words had been soft, but the meaning felt sharper than a blade. It was the kind of tone that could trap a man before he even knew he was caught. The commander barked orders to the human guards, instructing them to prepare supplies for the visitors. The Zarath soldiers stood silent, their armor catching every beam of the sun. Jonas noticed they rarely glanced at the humans, as if they were confident no threat could touch them. Yet the princess's golden eyes kept flicking in his direction, like she was watching his every reaction. When the formal greetings ended, the princess rose from her throne and stepped onto the sand. She moved with grace, each step deliberate. Her long braids swayed behind her, the silver strands glowing in the sunlight. Jonas caught himself staring, but quickly looked away. Still, the image stayed burned in his mind, the way she carried herself like a queen, even in the middle of a desert outpost. "Walk with me," she said suddenly, her voice clear enough for all to hear. The commander blinked, unsure if she was speaking to him, but her gaze remained on Jonas. He froze for a moment before stepping forward. The guards moved aside, letting them pass. Every soldier's eyes followed them as they walked toward the edge of the outpost. The sand stretched endlessly ahead, broken only by scattered rocks and the shimmer of heat in the distance. Jonas kept his hands at his sides, unsure if he should speak. The princess broke the silence first. "You handle armor well for someone who is not a soldier," she said. Her tone was calm, but there was an edge to it. It sounded like a question wrapped in a compliment. "I'm an engineer," Jonas replied. "I fix machines, ships, sometimes. Weapons, armor's not much different." She tilted her head, studying him. The wind caught a strand of her braid, brushing it across her cheek. "Machines are predictable," she said. "People are not, especially humans." There was a strange weight to the way she said the word humans, as if she was measuring its meaning. They stopped beside a large stone half buried in the sand. The princess rested her hand on it and looked toward the horizon. "This land will be a battlefield soon," she said. "But the reason I came here is not only war." Jonas waited, but she didn't continue. Instead, she glanced at him with that same faint smile she had worn earlier, like she knew something he did not. It made him uneasy, but also curious. He finally asked, "Why me?" "There are soldiers here better suited for whatever you need." Her lips curved slightly. "Because soldiers think only of orders," she said. "And I need someone who can think beyond them." Jonas felt a knot tighten in his chest. He didn't know if this was an honor or a trap. Either way, the look in her eyes told him refusal was not an option. Before he could respond, a sharp horn sounded from the outpost. Human soldiers rushed to the gates as alien guards adjusted their weapons. The air turned tense again. Jonas looked toward the sound and saw dust rising in the distance. The princess didn't seem alarmed, only watchful. "Your people move quickly when danger approaches," she said. Jonas realized she was still studying him, even in this moment of urgency. The approaching shapes resolved into small hovercrafts, carrying banners of a rival alien clan. The commander ordered defensive positions, but the princess raised a hand to stop him. "Stand down," she commanded her own guards. She turned to Jonas. "Come," she said. "You will see why I asked for you." Without waiting for an answer, she began walking toward the incoming crafts. Jonas followed, unsure if he was stepping into diplomacy or disaster. The hovercraft slowed as they neared the outpost. Sand swirled beneath them, and the hum of their engines vibrated through the air. Jonas noticed that none of the human soldiers moved without the commander's signal, yet every alien guard seemed to anticipate the princess's will. It was clear she commanded more than just respect, she commanded obedience. The craft stopped a short distance away, and figures in dark armor stepped out. Their helmets were sharp-edged, their cloaks bearing the crimson mark of the Vrekel, a clan known for its ruthless raids. The leader, a tall figure with pale blue skin, stepped forward and removed his helmet. His gaze shifted between the human forces and the princess, before settling on her alone. "Varela," the leader said, his voice like gravel. "You should not be here." The princess didn't flinch. Her golden eyes locked onto him, and her posture remained steady. Jonas could tell she was weighing every word before she spoke. "And yet here I stand," she replied. "You know why I am here." The leader's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken tension. The princess turned her head slightly toward Jonas. "This is the human I told you about," she said to the Vrekel leader. The man's eyes narrowed, scanning Jonas from head to toe. Jonas felt the weight of that stare, but he didn't move. He didn't know what she had told this stranger, but he had the feeling. It was more than the truth. The leader gave a slow nod, as if confirming something. Without warning, the Vrakel soldiers stepped aside to reveal a small metal crate. The leader gestured to it, and 2 guards brought it forward. They placed it at the princess's feet and stepped back. "This," the leader said, "is the first part of what we agreed on." Jonas's mind raced. He had no idea what was inside, but the way the princess's eyes sharpened told him it was important. She knelt and opened the crate, revealing an intricate piece of alien technology. It was no bigger than her hand, yet its surface pulsed with a faint blue light. Jonas leaned in slightly, recognizing the core of a high-energy shield generator. But this one looked older, as if it came from a forgotten era of technology. "You will repair this," she said, her gaze fixed on Jonas, "and you will do it quickly." Her tone left no room for refusal. Jonas stepped forward and examined the device. The metal was warm, almost alive under his fingers. "This isn't just damaged," he said. "It's been tampered with. Someone wanted it to fail." The Vrakel leader's eyes flickered, but he said nothing. The princess only smiled faintly. "That is why I chose you," she said. Jonas realized then that he was already in the middle of a game he didn't understand. They moved to a shaded tent set up near the outpost walls. Inside, the air was cooler, but the tension was still heavy. Jonas laid the device on a table and began working. The princess stood nearby, watching every movement. Occasionally, her golden eyes met his, and each time it made him feel like she could see straight through him. Outside, the hum of activity continued, but inside the tent it felt like a different world. "Why is this device so important?" Jonas finally asked without looking up. The princess stepped closer, her shadow falling over the table. "Because without it, the first line of defense will collapse," she said. "And if that happens, the war will end before it begins." Her voice carried no fear, only certainty. Jonas understood that whatever he was fixing could decide the fate of more than just the outpost. Hours passed, and the sun dipped lower in the sky. Jonas worked with steady hands, replacing damaged circuits and reconnecting delicate energy lines. Finally, the core pulsed with a brighter light, humming with renewed power. He looked up, and the princess was already smiling. "You've done well," she said. Before Jonas could respond, the sound of distant gunfire echoed through the desert, pulling both of their attention toward the horizon. Asterisk gunfire cracked across the dunes, breaking the brief calm that had settled over the outpost. Jonas instinctively stepped toward the tent's entrance, but the princess's hand touched his arm, holding him back. Her grip was firm, yet not aggressive. "Stay with me," she said, her golden eyes fixed on the sounds outside. There was no fear in her face, only sharp focus. The guards at the gate shouted orders, their voices overlapping as weapons were raised. Dust rose in the distance, and Jonas could make out moving shapes. Whoever was approaching wasn't trying to hide. The princess stepped out of the tent, and Jonas followed, shielding his eyes from the harsh sunlight. The horizon revealed dark. Figures riding fast skimmers, each one armed. The commander rushed toward the princess, saluting quickly. "Raiders," he reported, "closing fast." She didn't seem surprised. "They will test our defenses," she replied. "And they will fail." Jonas noticed she spoke with the same certainty she had when talking about the device. It was as though she already knew the outcome of the fight before it began. Her guards moved to form a protective wall in front of her, their armor gleaming under the sun. Jonas stood just behind her right shoulder, unsure if that was the safest place or the most dangerous. The riders came closer, their war cries piercing the air. Jonas's pulse quickened, but he kept his eyes on the princess, waiting for her command. She raised one hand, and the line of alien soldiers stilled instantly. The raiders skidded to a stop a short distance away. Their leader, a massive figure with scarred red skin, dismounted and strode forward. His weapon was strapped across his back, but his posture made it clear he could draw it at any second. "You carry something that belongs to us," he said in a deep, harsh voice. Jonas could feel the tension ripple through both sides. The princess didn't move. "You have been misinformed," she said. "What we carry belongs to no clan, only to the future of this land." The raider leader laughed, a sound that carried no humor. "Then the future is ours to take." Jonas glanced toward the repaired device in the tent, realizing it must be what they were after. If they got it, everything the princess had planned could be destroyed. Without warning, the raider leader signaled to his men. Several riders dismounted and began advancing. Jonas saw human soldiers raise their rifles, but the princess held up her hand again. "Not yet," she said quietly. She stepped forward, the sun catching on the gold of her armor. "If you wish to claim what is mine," she called out, "then you will have to defeat me here." The words rang across the sands like a challenge. Carved in stone, the raider leader's expression shifted, but he stepped closer, closing the distance. "You would fight for a piece of broken metal?" he asked. Her smile was faint but unshaken. "I would fight for what it will become," she said. Jonas felt a strange chill despite the heat. She wasn't bluffing. Whatever the device could do, she believed it was worth more than her own safety. One of the raiders lunged forward, raising a weapon, but a guard intercepted with a swift strike, sending the attacker sprawling in the sand. The sudden clash ignited the fight. Blades flashed, energy bolts lit the air, and shouts filled the desert. Jonas stayed close to the princess, ready to protect her if needed, though he knew he wasn't a trained fighter. She didn't retreat, instead moving forward with the calm of someone born into battle. In the chaos, Jonas caught sight of the crate being dragged from the tent by two raiders. His stomach tightened. Without thinking, he broke from the princess's side and ran toward them. Sand kicked up around his boots as he tackled the first one, knocking him to the ground. The second swung at him, but Jonas ducked and drove his shoulder into the man's chest, sending them both crashing into the crate. The device inside rattled but stayed intact. Jonas scrambled to grab it, feeling the hum of its power through the casing. He turned back toward the princess, who was now in the middle of the fight, her armor catching blows and returning them with precision. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, Jonas understood something. She had trusted him with more than just a repair. She had trusted him with the heart of her plan. Jonas clutched the device tightly, the weight of it far heavier than its small size should allow. The sounds of battle raged around him, metal clashing against metal, and the sharp hiss of energy weapons cutting through the air. Sand sprayed into his face as a rider crashed to the ground nearby. Jonas didn't have time to look. He focused only on keeping the device safe in his grip. A shadow fell over him, and he turned just in time to see a raider swinging a blade toward his head. Jonas dropped low, feeling the wind of the strike pass over him. He kicked at the raider's legs, sending the man stumbling backward. Before the attacker could recover, one of the princess's guards struck him from behind, knocking him unconscious. The guard gave Jonas a short nod before returning to the fight. Jonas ran toward the princess, weaving through the chaos. She moved like a force of nature, her golden armor flashing in the sun, every strike precise and controlled. She parried a blow, stepped aside, and brought her weapon down on her opponent's arm, disarming him instantly. Her focus never wavered. Even as the fight shifted, and the raiders tried to overwhelm her from all sides, when Jonas reached her, he held up the device. "I've got it," he said, his breath quick. She glanced at him, then at the object, and nodded once. "Good," she replied. "Now keep it close. If they take it, everything is lost." Her tone was sharp enough to cut through the noise of battle. Jonas tightened his grip, determined not to let it out of his hands for any reason. A sudden blast shook the ground beneath them, throwing sand into the air. Jonas shielded the device with his body, coughing as dust filled his lungs. When he looked up, he saw a group of raiders breaking away from the fight, heading toward the outpost's main gate. The commander shouted for his men to intercept, but the raiders moved too quickly. Jonas realized they were trying to create a distraction. The princess caught his gaze. "We have to stop them," she said. Without hesitation, she began running toward the gate, and Jonas followed. The noise of the battle faded slightly behind them, replaced by the thudding of their boots against the hard-packed sand. The air seemed heavier now, as if every step brought them closer to a turning point that could decide the outcome of everything. At the gate, the raiders were forcing their way through, their weapons cutting down the guards in their path. Jonas saw one of them holding a strange transmitter, its lights blinking rapidly. He didn't know what it was, but instinct told him it was dangerous. "That's no ordinary weapon," he said to the princess. She didn't answer, only charged forward with her blade raised. Jonas ducked to the side, circling toward the raider. With the transmitter, he tackled the man, both of them hitting the ground hard. The device flew from the raider's hand, landing in the sand a few feet away. Jonas scrambled to reach it, but the raider grabbed his ankle, dragging him back. They struggled, each trying to gain the upper hand as the fight around them roared on. The princess struck down another attacker before moving toward Jonas. She kicked the raider off him, sending the man sprawling. Jonas grabbed the transmitter and looked at her. "What is this?" he asked. Her eyes narrowed. "A signal beacon," she said. "If it activates, more of them will come. We must destroy it." She raised her weapon and brought it down, smashing the beacon into pieces with a single blow. Before Jonas could catch his breath, a horn sounded in the distance. The raiders still standing began to retreat, their leader signaling them to fall back. The princess didn't give chase. Instead, she stood watching them though, her eyes narrowing as if committing every face to memory. Jonas realized this was not the end, only a pause before the next move. The war between them had just shifted, and the device in his hands was now the center of it. Jonas clutched the device tightly, the weight of it far heavier than its small size should allow. The sounds of battle raged around him, metal clashing against metal, and the sharp hiss of energy weapons cutting through the air. Sand sprayed into his face as a rider crashed to the ground nearby. Jonas didn't have time to look. He focused only on keeping the device safe in his grip. A shadow fell over him, and he turned just in time to see a raider swinging a blade toward his head. Jonas dropped low, feeling the wind of the strike pass over him. He kicked at the raider's legs, sending the man stumbling backward. Before the attacker could recover, one of the princess's guards struck him from behind, knocking him unconscious. The guard gave Jonas a short nod before returning to the fight. Jonas ran toward the princess, weaving through the chaos. She moved like a force of nature, her golden armor flashing in the sun, every strike precise and controlled. She parried a blow, stepped aside, and brought her weapon down on her opponent's arm, disarming him instantly. Her focus never wavered, even as the fight shifted and the raiders tried to overwhelm her from all sides. When Jonas reached her, he held up the device. "I've got it," he said, his breath quick. She glanced at him, then at the object, and nodded once. "Good," she replied. "Now keep it close. If they take it, everything is lost." Her tone was sharp enough to cut through the noise of battle. Jonas tightened his grip, determined not to let it out of his hands for any reason. A sudden blast shook the ground beneath them, throwing sand into the air. Jonas shielded the device with his body, coughing as dust filled his lungs. When he looked up, he saw a group of raiders breaking away from the fight, heading toward the outpost's main gate. The commander shouted for his men to intercept, but the raiders moved too quickly. Jonas realized they were trying to create a distraction. The princess caught his gaze. "We have to stop them," she said. Without hesitation, she began running toward the gate, and Jonas followed. The noise of the battle faded slightly behind them, replaced by the thudding of their boots against the hard-packed sand. The air seemed heavier now, as if every step brought them closer to a turning point that could decide the outcome of everything. At the gate, the raiders were forcing their way through, their weapons cutting down the guards in their path. Jonas saw one of them holding a strange transmitter, its lights blinking rapidly. He didn't know what it was, but instinct told him it was dangerous. "That's no ordinary weapon," he said to the princess. She didn't answer, only charged forward with her blade raised. Jonas ducked to the side, circling toward the raider. With the transmitter, he tackled the man, both of them hitting the ground hard. The device flew from the raider's hand, landing in the sand a few feet away. Jonas scrambled to reach it, but the raider grabbed his ankle, dragging him back. They struggled, each trying to gain the upper hand as the fight around them roared on. The princess struck down another attacker before moving toward Jonas. She kicked the raider off him, sending the man sprawling. Jonas grabbed the transmitter and looked at her. "What is this?" he asked. Her eyes narrowed. "A signal beacon," she said. "If it activates, more of them will come. We must destroy it." She raised her weapon and brought it down, smashing the beacon into pieces with a single blow. Before Jonas could catch his breath, a horn sounded in the distance. The raiders still standing began to retreat, their leader signaling them to fall back. The princess didn't give chase. Instead, she stood watching them go, her eyes narrowing as if committing every face to memory. Jonas realized this was not the end, only a pause before the next move. The war between them had just shifted, and the device in his hands was now the center of it. The valley stretched wide before them, dotted with enemy tents and supply stations. From this height, Jonas could see patrols moving between the camps, their weapons glinting faintly in the early light. The princess stood with her hands behind her back, her gaze fixed on the scene as if memorizing every detail. Jonas felt the chill of the morning air, but her presence radiated a steady, unshakable warmth. A scout approached quietly, bowing before the princess. "They are preparing for movement," he said. "Their forces are gathering in the center camp." The princess gave a small nod. "Then they intend to march soon," she replied. Jonas studied her face, noticing how calm she remained in the face of certain danger. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment for far longer than she would admit. She pointed toward a ridge on the far side of the valley. "That is where we will strike," she said. "A sudden blow to their command will scatter the rest." Jonas frowned. "That's deep in their territory," he said. "We'll be surrounded the moment they know we're here." She looked at him, her golden eyes sharp. "Then we make sure they never know," she said. Her words carried the certainty of someone who had already decided the outcome. The soldiers moved quickly to prepare. Weapons were checked, armor adjusted, and small squads formed. Jonas found himself in the same group as 2 Zarath warriors and a human sharpshooter. The device he had repaired was strapped securely to his back, its blue light faint but steady. Every step he took made him more aware of its importance, as if it pulsed in time with his heartbeat. They moved along a narrow path down the ridge, staying low to avoid being seen. The sand crunched softly under their boots, and the wind carried the faint sound of distant voices from the camps below. Jonas kept his eyes ahead, matching the steady pace of the princess's movements. She never looked back, but he knew she was aware of every step they took. At the base of the ridge, they paused in the shadow of a large rock formation. The princess gave quiet instructions to her guards, pointing out positions and escape routes. Jonas listened closely, realizing how precise her planning was. Every movement had a purpose, Every risk was calculated. It was not just bravery guiding her, it was strategy, sharpened over years of leadership. When the signal came, they moved as one. Jonas followed close behind the princes as they slipped between patrols, their shadows merging with the terrain. The closer they got to the command tent, the more he could hear orders being shouted, the clatter of weapons, the rumble of machinery. His pulse quickened, but he forced his focus to stay on her back, using her steady movements as his anchor, reaching the command tent. They found it guarded by 2 sentries. The princess signaled silently, and her warriors moved forward with lethal precision. The guards were taken down without a sound. Jonas watched her push aside the tent flap and step inside, her presence filling the small space instantly. The enemy commander looked up in shock, his hand going to his weapon, but he was too slow. The princess's blade flashed, knocking the weapon from his hand. She pressed the edge lightly against his throat. "Call off your march," she said. The commander's eyes flicked to Jonas, then to the device on his back. "That's what you're here for," he said, his voice low. Jonas tightened his grip on the strap. The princess leaned closer to the commander. "No," she said. "That is what I'm here to protect." Her tone left no room for argument. Suddenly, a horn blast split the air outside. Jonas's stomach dropped. They had been discovered. The princess's eyes narrowed, and she stepped back from the commander. "Time to leave," she said. Jonas didn't need to be told twice. They slipped out of the tent, moving quickly toward their escape route as shouts and footsteps grew louder behind them. The valley was no longer calm, it was about to erupt. And Jonas knew the final clash was coming. The enemy camp erupted into chaos as the horn's echo faded. Soldiers spilled from their tents, grabbing weapons and forming lines. Jonas followed the princes through the shadows, the device's weight pressing harder against his back. Every heartbeat felt louder than the noise of the camp, but he kept moving. The princess's pace was fast and unyielding, her focus locked on their escape path. Arrows of energy hissed through the air, striking the ground around them. Jonas ducked behind a low wall of crates, the wood splintering under enemy fire. The princess crouched beside him, her golden eyes scanning the path ahead. "They will block the ridge soon," she said. Jonas knew what that meant if they didn't move now. They would be trapped with no way out. She gave a sharp signal, and their squad broke from cover. Jonas ran hard, his boots pounding the sand. Enemy shouts followed them, but the princess's guards struck down anyone who tried to close in. The path narrowed between 2 rock spires, and Jonas felt a surge of relief. They were almost clear of the camp. That relief vanished when enemy riders appeared ahead. Blocking the way, the riders leveled their weapons, their skimmers rumbling with power. Jonas froze, but the princess stepped forward without hesitation. "Hold them," she ordered her warriors. They surged ahead, clashing with the riders in a storm of sparks and steel. Jonas slipped through the melee, gripping the device tighter as if it could somehow shield him from harm. The sound of combat roared on both sides. A rider broke past the guards and lunged for Jonas. Instinct took over. He swung the device case like a weapon, slamming it into the attacker's chest. The impact knocked the man from his skimmer, sending him crashing to the ground. Jonas's hands shook, but he didn't stop. The princess called his name, and he sprinted toward her voice. She stood at the base of the ridge, fending off 2 more enemies. Together, they climbed the slope, their boots slipping on loose stones. Enemy fire followed them, striking the rocks and sending shards into the air. Jonas's lungs burned, but he pushed forward. At the top, the convoy they had left earlier was waiting. The commander waved them toward the lead transport. "Get in," he shouted. Jonas climbed aboard, and the princess followed, her armor streaked with dust and scorched marks. The transports roared to life, tearing away from the ridge. Enemy riders gave chase, but the convoy's gunners drove them back with precise bursts of fire. Jonas sank into his seat, gripping the device in his lap. His chest heaved and sweat stung his eyes. The princess sat across from him, watching the horizon with the same calm she had shown at the start of the mission. When the enemy finally faded from view, the tension in the transport eased. Jonas looked down at the device, its blue light steady and unwavering. "It's safe," he said. The princess's lips curved into a faint smile. "For now," she replied. "But safety is never permanent. What you carry will change more than this battle. It may change the future of both our peoples." Her words settled over him like a weight he couldn't put down. They returned to the outpost under the fading light of day. Soldiers lined the gates, cheering their arrival. Jonas stepped out of the transport, the case still in his hands. The air smelled of dust and victory, but also of uncertainty. The princess stood beside him, her presence commanding even in exhaustion. "You did more than I expected of you," she said. "And for that, you have my gratitude." Her voice was softer now, almost personal. Jonas met her gaze, unsure how to respond. In the short time they had fought side by side, he had seen her strength, her intelligence, and her willingness to risk everything for a cause. "I was just doing my part," he said. She shook her head. "No, human, you are doing more than that." Then with a small smile she added, "And next time I ask you to fix my armor, perhaps I will mean it." The words carried both a promise and a challenge.